Hello and welcome back to the Bets on Rap podcast. I'm your host, Corey Easley. I'm joined most of the time, as always, with Alex Valdez and a special guest at PropStarz on Twitter. Alex, welcome to the show. I really appreciate your time coming on here and just, giving us your presence in the prop community. It's awesome. You do great work. You're obviously very busy man, and you currently are a CBS Sportsline Analyst as well. Can you just let us know how you got into the prop game, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thanks for having me on, guys. It's great to be joined with a fellow Alex as well. So cheers, Alex.
Cheers.
Yeah, so I was playing poker professionally at one point. Simultaneously, I was also sports betting, but it was mainly recreational, but I always had an interest in sports betting. Around the same time that I was playing poker for a living, I was also playing a lot of competitive, high stakes, season-long fantasy. Pretty much during NFL season, that would occupy almost all my time. Around that time, a lot of the guys that I was grinding alongside of and playing a lot of fantasy with and poker kind of introduced me to props. There was just a ton of overlap with the research. Pretty much a lot of the strategy that I was, dedicating towards grinding fantasy totally applied to props. So yeah, it was like a very seamless, smooth transition. This was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So yeah, around that time I transitioned kind of fully from playing poker and really heavily grinding season-long fantasy. And then, yeah, it was pretty much love at first sight. And ever since then, I've been just all in on props. And yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I can feel that. Like, I know Alex and I have been really hard on props, I guess, the last, couple of years now.
Yeah.
Maybe not Alex, but definitely me.
Yeah, I definitely had gotten into it a little bit more with Corey. I was always just so into fantasy, and it's like two in the same. So it was just such a seamless transition to add to the fantasy addiction.
So I love the aspect of having, like instant results, not having to wait, the duration of the season or, however long. It's just so nice to be able to place a bet and tune in for one game and, have the results at the end of the game. So yeah, it was totally just like love at first sight for me. It was just instant marriage. And yeah, just kind of everything that I had been learning and developing as far as like, my education is concerned and background in like game theory and like playing various games competitively, just all kind of translated so well. So yeah, it was right place, right time. The market also was kind of exploding. And so, yeah, I also, that was around the same time. Well, actually just like less than a year ago, I came on the Twitter just kind of looking for additional insight and resources. And that's when I saw that there was, at the time, very few people handicapping on Twitter or offering any sort of advice. So that's also around the same time that I began doing that as well.
Yeah, it's definitely awesome. And me and Alex are very jealous of you guys. You guys get those early lines out there.
Oh, man.
It's good to see. No, but that being said, let's get into week 3. Let's try to get this Power Parlay, Alex. I know it's a fleeting task, but we're going to try to get it done.
It's time to try to pay our mortgages.
All right, so we're going to look at the first game here. It's the Arizona Cardinals and Jacksonville Jaguars. The Cardinals are 7.5-point favorites in this game. The total 51.5. As far as this game, it seems a little bit like a trap game. That 7.5 line is a bit tricky, but obviously, I think Cardinals are going to win this game. It's just whether or not they cover. So, any side or total on that one, guys, that you're looking at?
So, yeah, I agree, Corey, regarding the trap aspect. To me, Arizona is a really young team. They're riding high. They're starting off 2-0. I think that they're feeling themselves a little bit, which they should be. I don't think the expectations for them coming into the season were that they were going to, suddenly be a Super Bowl contender. But obviously, they're playing really well. They're off to a great start. Kyler Murray looks exceptional. On the other end, you have the Jags, who appear to be the biggest dumpster fire in the NFL. Urban Meyer appears way over his head. I personally see this as a very possible trap scenario where, if I were the Cardinals, or a Cardinal fan, I'd be a little bit worried that Jacksonville could sneak up on them with absolutely zero to lose. And they're going to win a game at some point. It's just a matter of when. So, as far as the side and total is concerned, I actually lean towards Jacksonville in this game personally.
Yeah, I'd say that, and the fact that DeAndre Hopkins might not play this game. It's the norm of him to not practice during the week, but it's just one of those thoughts in the back of your head if you're going to make a bet with a spread like that. Like Corey said, I'm surprised it hasn't moved yet, which is also kind of a bad sign.
From what I gathered is he seems really likely to play. I mean, in the past, I know he gets a questionable tag pretty frequently, and it seems like he has a really high percentage chance of playing when he's questionable. But I agree. Just there is a little level of uncertainty there, and be interesting to see.
Well, I know everyone was very upset that Rondelle Moore props were not out as of, I guess, maybe 24 hours ago. We now have that figured out, and he's at 54.5. As for props, guys, what did you like in this game? Because I only have a couple that I was looking at.
So I put out one play through an appearance I was on 4 for 4 the other day where, I like Laviska Shenault over 4.5 catches. At the time that I called it out, I believe it was in the minus 135 range, which is pretty juicy. Yep. I know you guys are working with different odds over there. I just to touch on him briefly, he had a massive week 1. He had 10 targets. Week 2 was a big disappointment, but it was against the Denver Broncos. They have, in my opinion, top 3 defense in the league, very stingy secondary. So went from having a tremendous week to about like the worst week imaginable. He still had 7 targets in week 2, although I think he turned them into 2 catches for like negative minus net yards, which was obviously terrible. But I'm expecting a bounce back performance. He runs a lot of high percentage routes close to the line of scrimmage. So, Jaguars don't have a great offensive line. They also throw a lot. So he's going to be the recipient of Trevor Lawrence getting pressured. I expect him to continue to have a big target share. This is obviously a much softer matchup versus a Cardinals defense. I also think this game is going to be extremely fast paced. I think there's going to be a ton of throwing up and down. I'm expecting both quarterbacks to air the ball out a ton, a lot of yards. And I can also see a scenario where Arizona could potentially get up big, kind of play a little prevent. And Laviska could be a big beneficiary of that. So I like Laviska over 4.5 catches. Rondelle Moore, I was waiting on him. I know you mentioned his yards was 53.5. I like the number. I would be in love with the number if we knew Hopkins was potentially missing the game. With Hopkins in, I've been riding Rondelle Moore the first 2 weeks, by the way. I was playing his yards and catches. I absolutely love the guy. I think he's one of the most talented, explosive young players in the league. However, what is concerning about him at that number is he's only playing less than 50% of the snaps. AJ Green and Christian Kirk, obviously Hopkins, are still playing more. It makes no sense why AJ Green is playing more. I guess, he's a rookie, so they're bringing him along slowly, kind of expanding his route tree. But he did have a 77-yard catch last week. So if you take away that, he only finished with 35 yards. Obviously, you can't count on a 77-yard touchdown bomb every week. So I'm a little apprehensive just based on his current snap count. Without Hopkins, I'd be in on that all day. But not knowing it, I'm kind of apprehensive at that number.
No, that's fair. And I think me and Alex kind of had a mutual prop in here. Mm-hmm. We both like Chase Edmonds over 3.5 catches in this game. So he's at, let's see if it's still there. Yeah, still at 3.5 and getting basically $1.88 there as per value. Laviska Shenault here is, like you said, 4.5, $1.65. So the question remains, what do we put in a Power Parlay?
I like Edmonds a lot, guys. I think that's a really good pick. I've been really encouraged with what I've seen. He's played super well the first 2 weeks. I also see the backfield tilting more and more because he's just a more versatile weapon. He obviously is really good in the passing game, hence, liking his receiving prop here. So, I like that play a lot, with better odds. I think that's a really good play. I do think there is a little bit of volatility regarding running back reception props. So there is that aspect.
We learned that last week, didn't we, Alex?
Alex, I tried to get the Mixon line like week 2, or I think it was week 1 maybe. Yeah. And I saw somebody tweeted out for like 22.5, and by the time I got it, it was 23.5, and he finished with 23, and I was so upset about that. I was like, oh man. But yeah, no, it's very rare that me and Corey both have official plays that really match, because I feel like our logic is similar but different. So I almost want to not even mess with the mojo with Chase Edmonds, but real quick, what is Trevor Lawrence's pass touchdowns at the moment? Because like what we were saying earlier with it being a possible trap game, like him getting 2 touchdowns, like on my book it was paying a
2-to-1 odds.
Paying $1.90 on my book, so that's great value there.
I like that bet a lot as well. I was gonna say, like, if I were to pick like my 3 or 4 favorite props from that game, that would definitely be on the list. I think he's going to be throwing a ton. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I have minimal to no faith in the Jaguars' running game. They're pretty much not even running the ball. He's going to chuck it. There's a lot of ways he can get there, too, in a competitive game script or even a negative game script where, Jacksonville's trailing and playing from behind, and he just, throws 2 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions. So, I think that's a really good bet. Good bet.
What do you think? Lawrence or Edmonds? What do we go with?
What has the better odds?
Lawrence.
I'd lean Lawrence.
All right.
I think it's a little bit safer.
Do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I also don't want to interfere when you guys align for the same pick.
That was on my list. That was on my list to bring up. I'm just glad that you also see it too.
No, I love that play. Yeah, I love that play.
All right,
it seems like great value for an expected shootout.
Agreed.
Definitely. The next game is the Indianapolis Colts at Tennessee Titans. This game's very interesting as well. The Colts right there in the Vegas zone, if you will, at 5.5 points. They're getting, and the total's at 47.5. Man, this is a tough game to cap as far as head-to-head and totals. I would lean to the over and probably lean to the Titans, but I mean, Colts have a quarterback with 2 sprained ankles, so we don't have to go too deep on that one, but is there anything you like? Do you like the Titans or the Colts on this one?
This is a tough one. I agree. Yeah, I do expect Wentz to play. Obviously, the latest report was that he was looking good, and he's expected to play after all week hearing, various reports that he was questionable for the game. So, I guess he is looking good as of now. He's so brittle, though. It wouldn't surprise me if he was warming up and sprained an ankle, and he was like a rule out right before the game. But this is a tough one. I mean, if he's healthy, I think they're going to be competitive. But just not knowing and the kind of level of uncertainty with him, it's a division game. I have a tough time leaning either way. But if I was forced to pick, I think I would go Colts, just being the familiarity aspect. It's a divisional game. I still think the Colts are slightly underrated. Meanwhile, on the other side, Tennessee, I was really high on them coming into the season. I thought the offense would be extremely explosive, and they won last week, but I think they've played poorly. I have not been impressed with Tennessee. Their defense is bad. So, if I were to lean away as far as sides and totals or spreads are concerned, I would lean Colts.
Yeah. So as far as props go, I mean, I got a few. I only gave out one. I had a couple leans here, but the one I gave out was Michael Pittman over 4.5 receptions. He's coming off a big game. I think he had 12 targets, 8 receptions last game. My guy, Zach Pascal, also made my list, but he's more of a lean. And it is a dangerous ride going with Zach Pascal. His receptions is at 3.5. I do think he gets 4. His yards is a bit hectic. And I had Jonathan Taylor over 59.5 yards rushing as well in this one. Tennessee's defense doesn't really scare me. And if, the quarterback is banged up, I kind of like that kind of idea of them actually trying to get him going on the ground. And then the last one for me I had was, Alex, you're going to hate this, Derrick Henry over 12.5 yards receiving.
Oh, that's popular. That's a chalky play this week. I've been questioning about that quite a bit. Yeah,
We tried
I
to
love the
last
Pitman
year
play.
for like 5 yards and you couldn't get it.
See, well, you know what is it with us and having PTSD from receiving yards? We had Derrick Henry last year over 6.5 yards receiving. He ended the game with 6.
Oh God,
Pain, total pain.
I love the Pittman play. I gave out his yardage play on Twitter at 47.5. Yeah, he was week 1 was a little bit of a dub, but he was phenomenal in week 2. He's an excellent breakout candidate receiver. I think he's one of the most explosive young receivers in the league. I think that number is maybe 10 yards off. I would have projected him with Wentz, obviously, knowing Wentz's status, knowing that Wentz was playing. I think that line should have been closer to 55, 56. So, yeah, I love Pittman catches. I was on his yards, but I like the catches as well. I mean, Wentz just doesn't have anyone to throw to. You mentioned Pascal, but I believe Paris Campbell is going to be inactive, and then he throws to Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. So yeah, I think Pittman's just by default going to have a large target share, be the de facto number 1 option in the passing game. He's a very good receiver. So yeah, I love Michael Pittman. And again, on the other side, Tennessee's secondary is just dismal. It's terrible. They've been absolutely shredded first 2 weeks. I have very minimal to no confidence that they can stop anyone. So yeah, I love Michael Pittman this week. That's my favorite prop in the game.
So we just put Pittman receptions in now, or what?
Yeah, I was gonna say so. I didn't want to commit to Pittman until I saw Wentz's status come back. So
that's fair.
He was definitely on my list before I heard the news. But funny, again, your guy Zach Pascal is on my list with the over 3.5 receptions. I just think he's just been looked at early and often. And let me see, in his last,
I think he got 4 last game.
He had in week 1, 5 targets, 4 receptions. Week 2, 6 targets, 5 receptions. So Wentz definitely looks his way. And the other one I liked, Julio Jones, over 4.5 receptions. And I know we got burned in the week 1 with that dismal Titan start, but I think they're going to, like, Julio's just going to get more and more involved. I don't see them letting A.J. Brown and Julio be so uninvolved weekly. So I like that play as well.
Well, we get more value with Pittman over receptions. Pittman yards is at $1.88 at 51.5. Julio's at $1.74 for over 4.5 catches. Pascal's at $2.12, and Pittman's at $2.26 for over 4.5.
Just so I have a basis, what does, like, for instance, like a $1.76 translate to in?
So you win 76 cents for every $100, basically.
Okay. So if it's $2, you're winning.
It's 2 to 1. Yeah.
You're winning $2 for a $1 bet.
Yeah, you're winning. Yeah, if you bet $1, you win $2. Yeah.
Okay, so that's okay. That makes sense. So that's essentially like minus 100 if it's $2 to 1, or if it's $2, it's minus 100. Or is that minus?
It'd be plus 100.
Be plus 100. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, just to boost our confidence with Michael Pittman this week, the Titans secondary has allowed a wide receiver 1 every week. And what likely candidate would it be besides, Pittman? Obviously, yeah. I'm sure Corey's going to say Pascal in the back of his head.
Another stat that I saw just when I was researching the Pittman play is the Titans have allowed 6 receivers to have at least 48 receiving yards as well in the first 2 games.
Beautiful.
So someone's getting a 50 bomb from the Colts, at least one guy. And I mean, yeah, there's only so many candidates because they pretty much only throw to Pittman, Pascal, and then Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor. They don't really have a deep wide receiver group or pass catching group. I mean, the tight ends get a little bit of action, but they're also low volume. Everyone seems to be low volume in that offense outside of Pittman.
Yeah. We're gonna take the value. Make an executive decision.
I like it.
And we're going to move on to the Baltimore Ravens and Detroit Lions. The Ravens are 7.5-point favorites in this game. The total's at 50.5. I'm kind of a Raven guy. I just love watching Lamar Jackson. Detroit Lions are a bit frisky, and I could see them scoring some points in this game. 50 is a pretty high total. What are you guys' thoughts on this game?
I think the Lions are a little bit better than the public perceives. That being said, I think Baltimore is better than they've performed. I think this is a tough game for the Lions. I think Baltimore should be able to kind of implement their game plan, which is, a run-heavy attack. I don't see the Lions really offering much in the way of resistance. And then I don't think that they have the offensive. On the other side, I don't think Detroit possesses the offensive talent to really kind of challenge the Ravens defense. The Ravens defense hasn't looked great. Obviously, they played, the Chiefs, so no one really looks good against the Chiefs. But yeah, the Raiders played well as well. I think the Raiders are an underrated offense. But yeah, I don't see the Lions really being able to sustain long drives, move the ball effectively the way that Mahomes and Carr were able to in the first 2 weeks. So yeah, I see the Ravens defense having success versus Jared Goff, who's played a little bit better than, I think most people expected. So yeah, I think the Ravens have the blueprint, the talent. I think they're schematically a tough matchup for Baltimore. I just don't see a way that Baltimore can make this a competitive game unless some really weird stuff happens, which obviously this is the NFL where weird stuff happens all the time. But yeah, I think if these guys play 10 times, Baltimore, covers this 8 out of 10 times.
Yeah. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, no, this week's lines, I wasn't a big fan of a lot of them. I just did a big teaser.
Yeah, this is a teaser, for sure.
Yeah, but I would I agree with Alex's sentiments on Baltimore. I think their defense can play better, and I think their offense is. I mean, Lamar Jackson has been handling all these injuries so well. Imagine losing your top 2 options in the running game, and you're out producing. You're able to still produce on the ground as a team. It's just phenomenal. I definitely would lean with the Ravens, and they're on my big teaser that I posted.
Yeah, so the one thing I would keep in mind if you're trying to bet this game head-to-head, the Ravens, obviously known for their blitzing. The Packers, for some reason, in that first half, did not blitz Jared Goff very much at all. The second half, they did. They blitzed him a ton, and you saw the benefits of that. So, pretty much froze him in the tracks. So, I do like the Ravens in this game. As for props, I think I have too many in this one. No, I got 4 that I gave out. I got all things Marquise Brown, over 4.5 receptions, over 59.5 receiving yards. I got Hopkinson over 61.5 yards, and Deandre Swift over 32.5 yards receiving. And what do you like in this one?
Yeah, so there's a few props I like in this one. I was just pulling up my sheet so I could relay some stats to you, but I can't find it. So I like Lamar Jackson under 27.5 throwing attempts. This opened at 28.5. I'm really upset that I didn't get this play out at the time. I had written up a very lengthy analysis and I sat on it, and then I fell asleep and woke up and it had moved to 27.5. So I'm a little bitter about that, but yeah, I still love it at 27.5. Off the top of my head, I know Lamar Jackson averages 21 attempts in his career. In games that the Ravens have won that Lamar's started, he's been held under this total 33 out of 38 times, which is obviously a really high hit rate.
We'll take that.
Yeah, we'll take that. Furthermore, in his wins, he averages 21 attempts. So there's basically a large correlation between the Ravens winning and Lamar just not having to throw a lot. This was a similar kind of concept with Baker Mayfield's prop last week, which was 34.5 throwing attempts, which he stayed weighted under, which was maybe my favorite play of the season so far. When the Ravens win, Lamar just does not throw a lot. I think he's been held under this as well. 8 of the last 9 games. And then the one game that he was over was the week 1 versus the Raiders that went into overtime, and he only went over because the game went into overtime. So yeah, I anticipate Baltimore just doing what Baltimore does, having a run-heavy attack, a lot of Tyson Williams. Lamar obviously runs about 10 times per game. You've got Latavius Murray, who's getting slowly more involved with the offense. Devontae Freeman, who knows, Le'Veon Bell could be activated. Yeah, I just don't anticipate Detroit putting up much of a resistance whatsoever. I expect Baltimore to do what they do, run the ball out, bleed the clock. I love Lamar under 27.5 throwing attempts. I also like this opened at, I believe, 10 yards. It was Tyson Williams over 10.5 receiving yards. I didn't make it an official play, but I like that prop a lot. I'm not sure if that number is still available. But yeah,
12.5 now.
12.5 now. I still think it's pretty good at 12.5. I like that. I preface that saying there was a lot of volatility with running back receiving props, but yeah, I think he's going to receive a few targets. That's obviously just doable on 1 or 2 catches. On the other side of things, I've been on TJ Hawkinson the first 2 weeks. He's looked phenomenal. I expect him to continue to look phenomenal. There's literally no one else for Goff to throw to really on that offense. They're missing Tyrell Williams. They just don't have really viable outside receiving options. I expect another massive target share for Hawkinson, maybe similar to like Darren Waller in week 1 versus the Ravens. Yeah, so I think Hawkinson is a good play. His yardage obviously has come up. His catches have come up, so you're paying a little bit more for that. But yeah, that's what I'm personally looking at. I think Deandre Swift, I know he's questionable, but yeah, his receiving prop looks somewhat, if I were to lean one way, I'd lean over. But yeah, the prop that I love is Lamar Jackson under 27.5 passing attempts.
I like that. Alex?
Yeah, I'm definitely on both the receptions and receiving yards for Hawkinson and Marquise Brown. I think they both, like, especially for Marquise, it's just looked. I think ranging it back to last year, like his last 6 full games, he's just been so much better than what we've all and the public kind of think of him. So I like his lines right now. I also do agree with Alex on the DeAndre Swift receiving yards. I definitely think he hits the over, especially against this defense.
All right. Well, I kind of like that Lamar Jackson prop.
Oh, I love that. Sounds amazing.
One of my favorite props of the week, personally.
All right, we're adding that into the Power Parlay. Lamar Jackson under 27.5, and
it was plus odds in America at one point too, which was obviously very enticing as well. I'm not sure what it is there, but there was a really good
$1.88, which is basically minus 110.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
We'll take it. Washington football team at the Buffalo Bills, and the Washington football team is getting 7 points. This wasn't it 9.5, Alex, when we first talked?
Yeah,
in the week. I think it was 9.5, so that's come down a little bit. The total in this game is 45.5, and I have no idea what's going to happen in this game. I could see it going any kind of way. So good luck to anyone that's trying to bet this head-to-head or by the spread, because I think you lost some value there with the teaser. A lot of people are teasing this down to the 2.5. So what are you guys' thoughts on this one?
I totally agree, Corey. I have, out of every game on the slate, I would say I have less of an intuition as far as what I expect to see out of this game. I can see Washington performing better than they have the first 2 weeks because they have not looked good. The defense, I thought the defense coming into the season was going to be one of the better defenses in the NFL. I've been really surprised at their performance. The front seven has been really disappointing. On paper, I think they're one of the most talented units, but they're not playing up to that potential at all. I think it's a matter of time until they do. The defense was tremendous last year. I did expect a little bit of a regression coming into this season, but yeah, they have not looked good. So that could change. On the other side for Washington, I think Heineke is a competent, viable quarterback. Do I think he's long-term starter material? No, but I think he can come in and be competitive for a handful of games, as a backup. I think he's a quality above average backup. He's mobile. He's really athletic. I think he runs a 4.5 40. He's one of the faster quarterbacks in the league. He hasn't really been running yet, but I could see that helping them. On the other side, we have like kind of a Jekyll Hyde situation with the Bills. Looked terrible week 1, looked phenomenal week 2. Josh Allen has not been Josh Allen from last year. I don't think anyone expected him to replicate the season he had where he was essentially MVP level, just perfect throwing the ball. He struggled a bit this year. I can see Washington getting to him, and they have similar personnel, or at least talent in their front that Pittsburgh does. And we saw what Pittsburgh did in week 1. They were really, just made his life miserable. He looked terrible. He looked like the project that he was, coming into the NFL. I'm a big fan of the guy, by the way. I'm not trying to rag on him, but I have no idea where he's going to
go. Don't get Corey started, Alex.
Corey, you're not a fan of Josh Allen?
No.
I see that. I mean, I get the he's got some really erratic traits and seeing him, is difficult sometimes, like some of the plays he makes. But yeah, there's a contingency to think he's like, the second coming of Steve Young, and then it's obviously somewhere in between. But yeah, I don't think he's quite as good as some people think, but I don't also think he's quite as bad as probably you may think, Corey. But
yeah, that's fair. As for props, like I struggled to find like a prop that I really liked in this game. I didn't give out any in this game, and the one I was staring at forever is the Emmanuel Sanders prop, and it's at 42.5 right now. I mean, he's had 52 and 48 in the 2 games, and he's had 6+ targets in both of those games. So that's a lean for me, but someone's gonna have to bail us out here on the Power Parlay. Get us a prop for this one.
So similarly, how I didn't have like a feel like for knowing how the game will play out, I tend to have like some contextual or instinctual feel for a game to really kind of analyze props. At least that's like one piece of a much greater puzzle. So yeah, not really knowing like what this game will look like has been really difficult for me. Like, so I think this is one of the only games where I'm not even playing a prop privately. One thing I saw that looked somewhat appealing was Antonio Gibson's rushing attempts is 13.5. That being said, I could see a scenario where the Bills get up big in the first half. They obviously can put up points quickly, and Washington just abandons the run after that, kind of like what happened last week. I know the game was competitive versus the Giants, but it was really odd how in the first week Gibson had 20 carries, and then all of a sudden like McKissick is pretty much playing in like an even timeshare in the backfield. Again, like even projecting him, I think he's like, like if we knew or we had like a better idea of like what his week to week role would be, he's potentially a really good play. I think that guy's phenomenal receiving back, but he didn't play week 1. Yeah. And then week 2, he's obviously heavily involved and he makes the play of the game, arguably in the fourth quarter or third or fourth quarter, that huge pass he caught. So yeah, if gun to my head, that's one thing I looked at. I looked at Stephon Diggs over 6.5 catches. Similarly to that Pittsburgh game where they were in his face all day, he threw to Diggs and Beasley. Like I think they each had like double-digit targets, like 12 targets, and they both finished with like similar stat line of like 7 or 8 catches for like 50 or 60 yards. So I can see like a similar scenario where Washington is in Allen's grill and he's just looking at Diggs short underneath kind of slant routes, and he ends up with like a high catch total but a low yardage total. So those are I don't have I wish I could give like a strong opinion on a particular prop.
No, that's fine. It happens.
Oh, I'm surprised Corey, who's been a J.D. McKissick truther since like 1994, didn't have a prop for him.
What is his line? What do you guys know?
His receiving yards is 19.5. I was about to say, when in doubt, we just put J.D. McKissick.
I mean, this does make sense from a game script perspective with the spread that they're going to be trailing in this game. You would think that McKissick would get some run. This seems like the type of game where he would get some run just based on, Buffalo being a large favorite and him getting a lot of work when they're trailing. So
we go McKissick 2.5 receptions at $1.75 or McKissick over 19.5 at $1.95. I
think they're sort of synonymous. Like I think one hits, the other one hits.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh man. I mean, I like Terry McLaurin receptions, but I think that's more of me just like leaning on Scary Terry, just watching him last week. Like everyone knew it was going to go to him most of the time, and Heineke still went his way.
It's $1.65. We're not putting it in. It's too short.
Too short. Yeah, man. It might be a when in doubt. Give it to McKissick, man. I didn't have very much else on this one.
I'm going McKissick yards, 19.5. There you go.
I like it.
I hope he does well in a really deep league. He's one of my starting running backs.
I loved how we talked about like the volatility of running back reception props. Like 3 or 4 already. We're just like running back reception, running back reception, running back reception.
I just never learn.
The next game we got is the Saints at my New England Patriots. I mean, The Patriots here are 3-point favorites. The Saints they're definitely not the team we saw in week 1. Jameis has kind of turned back into Jameis, and the total in this game is 42.5. I know I listened to the Warren Sharp podcast, and he was hot on the under 43.5. I believe they bet it down. So at 42.5, I would probably lean the under still. I just think, the Patriots haven't scored a ton of points. Like the Saints are going to really struggle against this Patriots defense. So I like the Patriots. I like the under, but nothing official for me.
Yeah, I have been very impressed with Mac Jones. I think he looks very, very advanced considering he's a rookie. Looks phenomenal. He looks tailor-made for a Bill Belichick offense. He's just has a wonderful grasp of the offense. They're putting him in a position to succeed. He's getting rid of the ball quickly. They're taking advantage of that with the routes they're running. So, I think he's a perfect fit in that offense. He's looked great. Patriots defense is still a top half defense. They're still a good defense. They're going to play sound football on both sides. New Orleans has been, a tale of two extremes. They look like world beaters in week 1 versus Green Bay. They looked absolutely terrible in week 2. I personally think that New Orleans is very short on offensive talent, especially looking at their pass catchers. Outside of Kamara, they just have 0 mismatches and 0 weapons that I really think you have to game plan for. So I think you take away Kamara, and it's easier to take away a running back than it is, a dominant receiver or tight end for a defense, just by stacking a box, giving a safety extra attention. But I think that they're really missing Michael Thomas. They're really missing a guy who can open up the field. I don't have a lot of faith in Jameis without viable receiving options. He even in the Green Bay game only threw 5 touchdowns. He finished with sub 200 yards, and I think that was more of a product of their running game and their defense really being phenomenal, and Green Bay just totally not showing up for the game. So, I think the Patriots win this game. I think Mac Jones continues to do his thing, move the ball efficiently. If I were to choose something as far as spreads and totals concerned, it would be on the Patriots side. As far as the totals concerned, I definitely think this is going to be a low-scoring, ugly game, but that number is quite low. I believe that is either the first or second lowest total for the season, if I'm not mistaken. I personally, initially when it opened, I would have probably gone under, but now that it's moved, I don't have a strong lean, but it is quite low. But I still like the under, I guess.
Here's a trend for you. 9 of the Patriots' last 10 games have gone under the total points.
Wow.
If you're in the trends.
No, I am. I mean, that's definitely.
As far as props go, like, I'm a Patriots fan. I understand like Kamara is probably the one guy they want to stop, but their rush defense is always lacking. And I gave out Alvin Kamara over 57.5 yards rushing. I do think the Saints can and will try to run the ball in this game. And I think Kamara, even if he gets, he springs one for, 20 plus gang, you're sitting pretty for the rest of the game. So I do like Alvin Kamara in this game. You talked about Mac Jones, and I do think they really have the training wheels on him right now in this offense. I think they're very, very conservative in the way that they're asking him to run it. A lot of short passes, like easy passes, unscheduled passes. They're not asking him to push the ball down the field yet. I did see some reports that, that they're trying to – that all that stuff's already incorporated in the offense. They're just not running it yet just because it's kind of a comfortable type thing. Like if they don't have to do it, then they won't type situation. So very interesting, this game. As for props, like I said, I have Kamara over 57.5 yards rushing. I like James White. There's more of a lean over 4.5 receptions at $2.03. Aguilar over 3.5 receptions at $2.09. And that was pretty much all I had for this game. Alex Valdez, what do you got for props on this one?
For props, I really liked Hunter Henry's receiving line. I got it at 25.5. What is it at right now? Just in case it moved.
Henry is at so many random receivers on here. 27.5, yeah.
Oh, 27. Okay, even then, here, let me see. Yeah, he had three targets, 3 receptions for 31 yards in week 1, and week 2, 4 targets, 2 receptions for 42 yards. I think he gets this easily. They definitely. It looks like they're leaning to Jonnu a little bit more, but Hunter Henry's still getting those looks, and that line is very low for him. So I really like that one. And I agree with you on the way that they're kind of having the training wheels on Mac Jones. So I think James White over 33.5 receiving yards is one I like as well.
32.5 right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, Alex, did you have any props on this game?
I didn't have any official plays. I fully agree regarding. By the way, I do like the Hunter Henry prop. I think that is a low number for him. I also think that his role will expand in the offense. As he gains more familiarity. Obviously, he's first-year player for Bill Belichick. That's a really deep playbook that I think takes some time to fully grasp. He was also recovering from an injury, so there's that aspect, not having the full reps of training camp and the off season, stuff like that. So yeah, I like that Henry prop. I love James White this year. I'm a huge fan of the guy. I think he's going to have a vintage James White type season. He's been Mac Jones's security blanket. It's not even fair to call him a running back. He's like a Swiss Army knife. That guy is like so versatile and does so many things. He runs so many routes. Damian Harris had that big fumble last week. So I think that, James White is just a guy that you can trust to get the job done. I love him. He's been phenomenal. He's had at least 40 receiving yards in the first 2 games. I continue to see him, probably being top 2 in targets for the Patriots. And yeah, I love James White. I think he's probably my favorite prop out of this game. On the other side, Corey, I know you mentioned you like Kamara. What struck me as an extremely interesting line is his rushing attempts. So his rushing attempts, I believe, was set at, I want to say 17.5 or 16.5.
I don't have him on here.
You don't have him on here. So yeah, he's set at most books in America at either 16.5 or 17.5. And outside of week 1 versus Green Bay, when he had 20 rushing attempts, he hasn't gone over. I think he's been held under this number in something like 15 of his last 16 regular season games. So yeah, that's something I really like. I just think that number is inflated due to week 1. He's just not a guy that they want to have carry the ball more than 15 times. Obviously, they deploy him a lot in the passing game. He gets a lot of targets that way. I think Tony Jones Jr. is going to serve in that Latavius Murray type role between the tackles where, he runs inside, and they're going to split that backfield. Kamara's obviously the centerpiece of that offense. They don't want to overwork him. He's had a lot of touches in his career. So yeah, I like his under. If unfortunately it's not available, it seems like over there, but yeah, I like his under. But yeah, I love James White as far as, I would say the Kamara prop and James White are my 2 favorite props from this game.
All right.
I like the Hunter Henry as well. But are we going to do another running back receiving? For the whole thing is going to be what's our favorite running back receiving prop from each game.
All right.
See the funny part about that is out of all the running back receivers we've picked, James White might be the only one that's like
probably the sure thing for targets. One. Yeah, I agree. He's got the highest. He's got the highest floor.
We've only put McKissick in.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just busting chops.
All right, we'll put Henry in, and if he doesn't pay off Valdez, I'm coming to California.
Where in California are you, Alex?
I'm actually it's in Ventura County. It's like an hour north of LA.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I lived in the Bay Area for a decade before I moved up to Oregon, where I am now.
Northern California has more seasons than Southern California for sure. I spent some time in Sacramento.
California weather though.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I love like the 75, 80 degree daily temperature. They've got the perfect weather, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Los Angeles, segue. The Chargers take on the Kansas City Chiefs in division matchup. The Chiefs are a 7-point favorite. The total on this one is 54.5. I like the Chiefs in this game. I think the Chargers are a little bit overvalued. Like I don't love the Chargers. I think a lot of people love the idea of the Chargers. They should have won that game last week, and they kind of kicked that one away. Just kept shooting themselves in the foot. This is a tough game. The Chargers going into Kansas City. I know the Chargers defense has had some success against the Chiefs in the past, but that was a different coaching regime and everything like that. So I think the Chiefs bounce back here and get this one. What do you guys think about this game?
This is a tough game for the Chargers going into Arrowhead versus a Chiefs team that you think is going to be very motivated after giving away week 2 versus Baltimore. Yeah, I see this. It's hard to look at every range of outcome and imagining a way that the Chargers can win this game. As far as the spread is concerned, 7 points is a lot of points, especially to a division rival. The Chargers do have a lot of talent on both sides of the football. But yeah, I expect this to be a very dynamic game, a ton of offense. I expect Mahomes to be super sharp. I expect, I think Herbert's going to also have a good game. I can see a scenario where the Chiefs get up big and the Chargers are trailing throughout the game. But yeah, if I were to lean one way, it'd be towards the over. And yeah, I like the Chiefs.
So can we make this like super easy and just say Mike Williams is going Power Parlay?
He's definitely one I like for sure.
You guys like Mike Williams a lot this week?
Yeah, I do. I'm
assuming you've been riding him both games, or you liked him a lot. But he's looked great. Yeah, it's been nice to see him emerge as his targets have always been so like roller coaster throughout his career. It's nice to see him finally have like a floor, and he's obviously performing super well. So yeah, it's good to see.
Just finally using him not as just like run down the field super fast as you can.
Totally.
And hope for the best.
Yeah, I think he's been awesome. His total is high though. His yards are at least.
Yeah, and Keenan Allen's higher.
Which also is a little bit surprising considering his depth of target is not so high. I know he obviously had a lot of yards last week versus the Cowboys, but yeah, I mean, looking at Keenan, so many of his yards or catches are like in that 7 to 10 yard range, and he has a shallow depth of target. So yeah, his yards are high as well. But again, obviously, this is Kansas City. They have been terrible at stopping anyone. Yeah, their secondary looks horrendous. Yeah, so they should both feast. My favorite prop in the game, though, is I gave this one out on Twitter. It's one of my favorite plays. Is Austin Eckler right back to the receiving running back receiving props. Austin Eckler over 37.5 yards. Looking at his historical splits versus Kansas City, he's been over in their last 5 of their last 6 regular season games. That includes at least, I think, 2 games where he had over 100 yards versus in that same sample size, he's averaged 65 yards receiving versus Kansas City. I think in a game script that's, potentially negative where they get down, they could throw the ball to him a ton. Even in a competitive game script, he's obviously one of their best weapons out of the backfield. Week 1, 0 targets, inexplicable, made no sense, very strange. Week 2, right back to where I think like things all of a sudden made sense again. He had 9 targets, turned that into 9 catches versus Dallas. I expect a similar target share. I think that number's low. He's been phenomenal against the Chiefs. I think there's a lot of ways he can get over this total, a lot of different game scripts. So yeah, that's my personal favorite prop in this game is Eckler over 37.5 yards. I think it should have been set closer to 45.
Well, it's at 40.5 now, so it has been bet up. What do we go with, Alex?
I mean, God, Eckler is always such a tease for me because last year his lines always almost got me to go there. But I tried not to go with too many or to double down on running backs receiving, just 'cause I've been burnt pretty bad. And what's Mike Williams' receptions at? Is that 5.5?
5.5.
Another play I like just because I think game script, I think the Chargers are going to throw a ton is Justin Herbert over 297.5. That's when I got it. I don't know if that's still available. I feel like people would have bought that one up.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I think it is.
I want to say it's like 306.
It is. Yeah, 303.5.
Well, I don't get my lines as early as Alex, but I'm glad I got that one.
I mean, Mahomes 3 touchdowns is $1.96. It's interesting as well.
Yeah, I don't see any Kansas City running back scoring a touchdown for a few weeks.
One of my favorite props, I also gave this one out on Twitter. I don't like it currently because it's moved like 12 or 14 yards. I know I actually saw a tweet you made about him, Corey, where I think you said he ranked like 35th or 36th out of 36 running backs in I forget, it was like some DVOA related stat, but it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire over, but I got it at 43.5. I think it's up to as much as 55.5 right now. Again, rushing, yeah. Don't love the player.
It's at 56.5.
I called it at 43.5. Pretty good, right?
That's awesome. Oh my
gosh. that was a great one. Yeah, that line just should have opened at like 53.5, in my opinion. I know we've touched on this game for a while, but Chargers defense, the middle of it is super soft. Zeke and Pollard combined for 200 yards rushing. Week 1, Antonio Gibson had a big game versus them. I think this Chiefs offensive line, they invested a ton in the offseason to upgrading it. Obviously, when you're adding new pieces to an offensive line, it takes a while to develop continuity and chemistry. Edwards-Helaire has not been good, but he is playing in obviously one of the most running back friendly offenses. Andy Reid offenses historically always produce great running back production. This number should have been set at around 55.5. I love it. I don't love it at 55.5 anymore, but 43. This is probably my favorite prop that I gave out this week.
Definitely.
I definitely got to find a way to bet on your book.
I'm making an executive decision.
Wait, me make the executive decision, or you're asking?
No, I'm not.
You guys look like Mike Williams. I mean, I feel like you guys.
It's Mike Williams. Yeah, that's.
So are you guys? How big of a parlay is this going to? Is it like a 14, 15 game parlay potentially?
Yeah. How many games are there? One. Yeah.
What do the odds usually end up like once it's completed?
Beautiful.
It's like last week I think we were at $5 bet, win 180K, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was definitely something just so beautiful.
That's fun. I gotta do this every week. This is like a
because
it's just a fun thing. Yeah. The next game we got is the Bears and Browns. Let's just go straight to the props. I don't like, as far as Bears and Browns, I really like Fields this week. I like his over 52.5 rushing at $1.88. I like Darnell Mooney over 38.5 yards. I think that's too low. It's $1.88 as well. And I had a lean to his over passing yards as well at 210.5. What are your thoughts on props for this Cleveland Browns Bears game?
So on the other side, I like Fields as a long-term quarterback. This week, I think it's a tough spot for him. I do like his rushing prop. What I don't like is his passing prop. I think this opened somewhere in the 218-yard range, and it's down to, I believe, 206. 208 now. 208. Yeah. I would have played it down to 210. Again, I like Fields. I think he's going to be a very good quarterback eventually, but this is his first start. The Browns defense has not been great, but I think they're better than what they've shown in the first 2 weeks. Fields is still a project. Quarterbacks that are young, they tend to typically lock on to their first read. If that guy's covered, then they take off, which is why I like his rushing prop a lot, which I expect him to do. I expect him to look at Allen Robinson and Mooney. If those guys are covered, then he's going to use his, he's a tremendous athlete. I think I do like his rushing prop a lot. I like his yards, and I like his attempts as well. I know that those have both gone up over the course of the week. So I like his under passing yards. On the other side, Beckham has an interesting total, his first game back. I'm a little apprehensive, though. I mean, who else does Baker have to throw to? But yeah, he hasn't even received contact in practice yet, which is concerning.
Four and a half.
Okay, yeah, so that's a low number. You'd think that, like, just by default, him being on the field running, there's no other viable receiving options for Cleveland that he'd go over this total, but just he's been, coming off the ACL injury. He hasn't even had contact in practice yet. It's a little scary from that vantage point. But yeah, I think that's appealing. Those are my two props that I've been looking at: Fields passing under and Beckham's over receiving yards.
Yeah, I locked this one and I tweeted it out. It was David Montgomery over 15.5 carries. I feel like this one's definitely moved up just because of Fields playing, but let's see.
16.5.
I like that 16. A lot. You think that they're going to get him the ball just to make the game plan easy for Fields. Yeah,
exactly. He's had 16 and 20 attempts in the first 2 weeks of the season. So I definitely think that they'll lean on him, especially with Fields. I like Darnell Mooney receptions, but it's always scary when you play when you have a rookie quarterback. You want to see their tendencies before you really lock on targets, in my opinion. I like Nick Chubb over 73.5 yards rushing.
Oh,
that line opened at 82 yards, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone down. The Bears defense has played better than I think people really expected. Like the Fields rushing, I think is the play. He had 10 rushes last game. I mean, if he's rushing,
I think 3 of them were kneel downs though, but I agree. It was 10 attempts in one half.
How many snaps did he actually have?
Yeah, I think he had 13 passing attempts and 10 rushing attempts. So yeah, he's gonna run a ton. So yeah, I agree. I think that is the safest.
Not to mention this Bears O-line, not good. He could be running for his life.
And Cleveland has a pretty viable front seven as well.
And it just went down a yard, just right in front of my face. So it's down to 51.5. So
I like that a lot.
We'll make it easy, and we'll add that in there. And we'll go to the next game, which is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Props wise, I know Alex, you're gonna hate me. All right, I posted Najee Harris under 67.5 rushing yards. He hasn't sniffed 67. He hasn't sniffed 60 yards. I don't think he's sniffed 50 yards in the game yet. So it's down to 66.5 now. I think that was the one I gave out. And obviously with Deontay Johnson out, and like I looked at those receivers from the Steelers as well. Like I can't pull the trigger. I think Big Ben's cooked, to be honest.
Yeah, as a fan, I hate hearing you say that, but as a logical bettor, I'm not touching Najee Harris until that offensive line gives me hope, because the offensive line didn't even pick up Ben when he got knocked down. So that tells me a lot about what's going on over there.
Do you have any props?
Yeah, I'm glad you're on Najee. That's one of my official plays from this week. I got it out at 68.5. The Pittsburgh's line has been as bad, if not worse, than advertised. Outside of that, Najee has all his metrics. He's not played well. Outside of line, sometimes it's hard to differentiate or know. Is it just a result of the line, or is the running back performing poorly, or is it both? In this case, it's both. Pittsburgh's line is bad, and Najee has both played poorly according to most advanced metrics. Yeah, so he's been bad. I also think on the other side, Cincinnati's front seven is good. It's quality. They held Dalvin Cook and I believe David Montgomery to identical stat lines of 21 attempts for 60 yards. So, yeah, they look good in the first 2 weeks. I think that's an underrated unit, their defense. So, yeah, that out of all the props in this game, it's definitely Najee Harris under. As far as Deontay Johnson missing the game, I see a lot of people thinking that Juju is going to be the biggest beneficiary, which I totally disagree with. I think Claypool's actually going to be the one who benefits from that. I know his yardage opened pretty high, but I think he's in line for a much larger target share. I'm high on Claypool. I'm not high on Ben Roethlisberger. I'm not high on the Pittsburgh offense, obviously, or the offensive line, but I do think Claypool is positioned to have a nice game. I like his prop. And then as far as the Bengals are concerned, we have no T. Higgins.
Joe Mixon time.
Mixon time. And I think Pittsburgh's defense is going to be without TJ Watt and at least 2 or 3 other starters. So, yeah, I expect a very healthy dose of Joe Mixon.
Yeah, that's actually one of the plays I had was Joe Mixon over 17.5 carries. They've given him all the
like 26 or something stupid.
Yeah, exactly. They're just letting him roam free.
They're just asking him to get hurt though, sadly. But I agree. Yeah, they're trying to make it life easier on Burrow, who still doesn't look 100% yet and is coming back from the ACL. But yeah, it's like Mixon's never been the most durable guy, and they're just giving him these monster workloads. So in the short term, I love it, but yeah, I'm worried that guy's going to break down soon. So,
all right, I think we go Najee Harris under 66.5. That Cincinnati defense has been really, really playing well, especially against the run the first couple weeks. So he's in. I'm sure Alex is gonna have a little tear there on his face, but
I'll have a tear until he start playing better overall.
The Falcons and the Giants. The only prop I had in this one is Matt Ryan over 278.5 passing yards. He had 300 last week. Both of these defenses are brutal. I mean, brutal stuff. I don't know. This looked like also, if you're a DFS player, it looks like a smash spot for Barkley to finally kind of have his breakout game. But as far as betting goes, I'm kind of just in a wait and see mode. So, yeah. Anything that you like with this Falcons Giants game?
Yeah, there are a few props I like in this game. I like Barkley, actually. This is the first time this season he has not been on the injury report. We've watched his carries go from 10 in the first week, 13 in the second week. I expect him. I think they're going to actually take the training wheels off, and I think he's going to be the focal point of the offensive game plan. I think he's going to flirt with 15 to 20 touches. I think, somewhere in the range of 15 to 18 carries, and then a handful of targets in the receiving game. I know the stat lines haven't been great for him in the first 2 weeks, but I've actually been encouraged with his play. He doesn't look like pre-injury Barkley, but I think he's pretty close. I think that the Falcons defense is a sieve, and that they're just absolutely terrible unit. This is like the perfect spot to basically get back on track for Barkley at 61.5. I think that number is pretty low. I also think his receiving and rushing combined prop at 87.5 is appealing as well. But yeah, I like his rushing prop. I gave this pick out on Twitter, which was Kenny Gallaudet over 50.5 receiving yards. I was on him last week. He performed really poorly. It was really disappointing to see. That being said, I think this is a little situation where it's like squeaky wheel gets the grease. He had like a tirade on the sideline that was captured at the end of the game. I think he's the 6th highest paid receiver as far as like annual average salary is concerned. With that salary comes a target share. Like, this isn't necessarily like, I think, it's a tremendous matchup against just an absolutely terrible Falcon defense. But yeah, I just think that considering that he hasn't, I think he's actually looked okay the first 2 weeks. The first week versus Denver, I think he had like 65 receiving yards, and they're obviously exceptional secondary, in my opinion. Last week, he dropped a couple of routine catches and still had like 45-ish yards. So yeah, I think this is like just a spot. If he ends up playing, he was limited to practice all week. So I think there's maybe somewhere in the 30% chance he doesn't play. But if he does play, he's going to get 10 targets, and he's getting 10 targets versus a Falcons defense. So to me, it's like he either plays, gets 10 targets versus arguably the worst secondary in the league, or he doesn't play, so the bet gets voided. So yeah, that would be my favorite prop along with Barkley over 61.5 rushing yards.
All right, Alex?
Yeah, I was on Goliday too, except my book didn't release until 55.5, and even then I still felt comfortable with it. Like, I feel like last week there was a few plays that it just comes with him missing time and building chemistry and rapport with Daniel Jones. And then I got this one at plus odds. It was Sterling Shepard over 5.5, but I'm sure that one probably moved just because of his
found the $1.79.
As far as Shepard is concerned, I think that he benefits though from a lot of the attention that Gallaudet gets. I like that prop, but I would just I think that prop is somewhat tied to Gallaudet play. I wouldn't like it as much, even though you would think that his target share would increase without Gallaudet on the field. I do think he benefits from a lot of the attention that Gallaudet receives as far as the Shepard's prop is concerned.
And Ingram's back this week, isn't he?
Possibly. I don't think they've announced him yet. Oh, he is?
Yeah, or at least he practiced, and I think he was expected to play. I don't know if he has been officially official report, but yeah, I think he's at least trending towards playing, and that was the reports.
Yeah, well, we're gonna add Kenny Gallaudet over 53.5.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, he either plays and gets 10 targets versus the worst secondary, or he doesn't play and it's voided. So to me, it's somewhat of a win-win.
For sure. The Dolphins and Raiders. Oh man, the Raiders are an interesting team. Obviously, with Waller there, and how that all works. That Hunter Renfrow and Brian Edwards are the ones that intrigue me every week. But I didn't go any Raider. I went Brissett under 18.5 yards rushing, $1.88, and Gaskin over 3.5 receptions, $1.88. So any props that you guys liked in this Raiders Dolphins game?
Yeah, I had Hunter Renfrow over 4.5 receptions. He just is a target machine for Derek Carr, so he should cover that easy. And then I had Darren Waller over 6.5 receptions. I got it at plus odds. I think the Steelers probably just they always had a safety on that side to just kind of keep Carr honest and not looking at Darren Waller. I think Darren Waller goes back to being a target hog this week as well. So I like those two plays.
Yeah, I agree in theory. The strength of the Dolphins defense is their boundary and their outside corners, and the way to attack the Miami defense is in the middle of the field. So yeah, I think Renfrow and Waller will be the biggest beneficiaries of that. So yeah, if I were to look at anything on the Raiders side, it would be Renfrow, Waller. But I saw a prop that, shout out to Doug, prop bet guy, he gave out earlier today. It was Kenyon Drake over 2.5 receptions. Love this prop. Another running back receiving prop, but this guy is running a ton of routes. I think he's had at least 5 catches or 4 catches in one game, maybe 5 catches in the second game. He's been really involved. He's checking down to Carr's checking down to him a lot. Carr's not driving the ball down the field. So I think he is. I think that's a tremendous. It's heavily juiced, but this is a spot, even though it's heavily juiced, I think is a very safe play. Is Drake
and
over
of course,
2.5
I
catches.
don't have it. See, this is what I mean. See,
he's at 5 and 6 targets in week 1 and week 2 respectively. So definitely getting the looks in the Let me see if it's available in my other book. So that's a great play.
It's a great play. I agree. Shout out Doug.
Yeah, shout out Doug.
Shout out Doug.
And only thing I have is his receiving yards, which is at 20.5. The trials and tribulations of
I mean, he's had 59 and 46 just for reference. So
yeah, he's obviously really productive, really explosive option out of the backfield. He's a really good route runner. I love how they're utilizing him in that role. They're using the corpse of Peyton Barber to run between the tackles. Let him, let Kenyon Drake do his thing.
Peyton Barber.
I think Jacobs is again doubtful to play. So yeah, I anticipate him kind of serving as somewhat of a safety blanket. And again, like just going back to Miami's defense, the strength of that defense is their outside corners. They take away, outside receiving options. So in addition to Renfrow and Waller, I think Kenyon Drake is a guy who can, get open in the middle of the field a little bit and be a check down option for Carr.
All right. We were putting Drake in then?
Yeah, we're going to put Drake in there. Even though, like Alex said earlier, we said got to watch out with volatility of rushing receiving yards, but, it just looks like a smash play.
We've done well. We've only put 2 in. Yeah. So the next game we got is the Jets and the Broncos. You guys are going to have to help me out on this one because,
Shout out to Alex. He got Cortland Sutton at an insane bargain. But when they dropped it at mine, Alex, it was 10 yards more. I was like, oh, that's a tough one.
I've seen it as high as 70.5 or 72.5 right now. Yeah, that's a tough one. Obviously, super excited to get him that low. No Jerry Jeudy. Cortland Sutton looks like he's back to pre-injury form. I think Bridgewater's a lot better than the consensus is about him. He's looked great in that offense. The Broncos are riding high. They're 2-0. On the other side, their defense is phenomenal. I expect them to be 3-0 in this game. The Jets are just dismal. looking at receiving options on the Jets, if I had to go somewhere, right back to it, Michael Carter Jr., I think his receiving prop is around 11 yards. 10. That probably has been 10 and a half. That question, I get fielded like something like, a couple hundred questions a week in my DMs, and that one would rank in the top 3 as far as questions I've been asked is about his receiving prop. So I know it's a bit of a chalky play. I'm personally not on it, but yeah, just pointing out that a lot of people like that play. I love Courtland Sutton. Obviously, I'm not buying it up in the 70s.
67.5 right now.
67.5, I think, is the defense. I mean, he looked phenomenal. He's going to lead them in targets very likely. Corey Davis is, I think, 44.5. It's low. We're looking at the best secondary in the league or a top 3 unit in the league, and Zach Wilson, I was high on him coming into the season. He has not performed well. It's a tough spot for him. This game is in Denver, correct?
It is. Yep.
Just brutal spot, right? Going to Mile High as a rookie, versus a really good team. Sutton would be my first choice, but the bump is significant. I still expect him to kind of get whatever he wants, though.
What's Javonte Williams rush attempts? Because I got it at plus 102 at over 12.5, and I really like that.
That's a great call. That's a great call. I like Javonte Williams.
$1.96 here. So
I gave out a play. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Alex. I gave out a play on in a column I did this week, though. One play I like is Melvin Ingram under, I believe it was 51.5 rushing yards, just to touch on it super quickly. Outside of that, I think it was a 70-yard run in garbage time versus the Giants in week 1. He has had like a 2.5 yard per carry average. I think Javonte Williams is the much better back at this point. Also, Javonte is not getting any receiving work. They're using Gordon in that role. The Jets defense is not great or not good, but they are somewhat confident as far as stopping the run is concerned. I like Javonte. I expect Gordon to continue working on third downs and having more of the receiving back role. So, I actually like Melvin Gordon's under 50.5 or 51.5 rushing yards.
50.5, I was gonna say Gordon's receiving yards is at 12.5. It's pretty low, but
he's gotten a lot of work. He's been really productive as the they're not using Williams in that role.
Right. And Williams has had back-to-back games over 12.5. He's had 13 attempts against the Jaguars and 14 attempts against the Giants in week 1. So I do like that. That's a good one. Should we go that, or should we take Courtland Sutton?
Courtland Sutton is at 67.5. I think they're letting Javonte beat.
Right?
Yeah.
So ball's on the ground. Let's go.
I mean, how do they not like just smoke the Jets and then just run the ball down their throat in the second half?
Especially with the rookie, they want to see what he has, give him a little bit more work. Yeah. I like it. I like that. I can spin a story with that in my head. So
I like that too.
All right, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Rams. I like a lot. I expect this game to be crazy. The total in this game is 55.5. Look, I'm on this weird kind of thing that Brady is attempting to make sure he has a chance. Well, he's trying to make sure that he will break the record against the Patriots week 4, the passing yard record. And so I had him over 301.5 yards passing. And then that sets him up. He barely has to do anything in that game to get that record in front of the New England fans. So I like that one. I do like Godwin over 71.5 yards. I expect Jalen Ramsey to just make Mike Evans' life terrible. So I like Godwin being a beneficiary of that, and Gronk over 3.5 receptions as well. Mainly because when the Rams do play zone, they like to keep their safeties deep. They like to keep everything in front of them. People have been able to move the ball in that defense, but it's all been in front of them. They're not letting anything over the top, and it's just underneath stuff. And, I mean, that's Brady's bread and butter anyway, so I don't know if that's going to be the same plan, but that's what they've been doing so far this season.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Corey. This is one of my favorite games for props as well. I think this is going to be a very over-centric game. Good luck if you're playing unders in this game. There's going to be a ton of offense, a ton of passing. Los Angeles, Darnell Henderson is banged up. So, yeah, Stafford is going to be throwing a ton. We know Brady's already going to be throwing a ton. I also love Chris Godwin this week. Just to expand on kind of what you were saying, one of my favorite props this week is his catch total was over 5.5 at plus odds. It was like a plus 105 when I got it. I absolutely love that. Ramsey sticks to one side of the field. He also is an outside receiver. The way they use Godwin, he lines up in the slot a lot, so he's going to avoid Ramsey. You mentioned he's going to be covering Mike Evans, which, I expect him to benefit from that as well. Also, the middle of the Rams defense is soft. So you also mentioned they play 2 deep safeties. So they kind of keep everything in front of them. So Brady's going to lean on his security blanket, which is Godwin. I like the Gronk play as well. Antonio Brown is tested positive for COVID, so he's out. So I expected a little bit boost to Godwin, who has been phenomenal in the first 2 weeks. He leads the Bucs in every receiving category: targets, receptions, yards. So I think Godwin's going to have a great game. I like both his catches and his yards. Loved his catches at plus odds. Here's a funny prop is that I like is Robert Woods over half of a rushing yard.
Nice.
Woods has had 60 rushing attempts over the past 3 seasons. I think he's covered this total in his past 18 games. I want to say 13 of those 18 games. In 15 of those 18 games, he's had at least 1 rushing attempt. He gets 1 to 2 rushing attempts per game, basically over the past 3 seasons since he's been a Ram and been with McVay as his coach. There's a good chance that Henderson doesn't play, so they're going to have to generate some rushing offense out of, something. Like Sony Michel is like one of the only healthy backs on that roster. So, I love Robert Woods over half of a rushing yard. I think he's very likely to get 1 to 2, possibly even 3 attempts. McVay loves receiver end arounds, and he is the biggest beneficiary of that. So I love Robert Woods over half of a rushing yard. It moved up to 1.5 yards, I believe. I'd play it at 1.5 yards as well.
I don't have that, unfortunately. Alex, you might have that. Alex, are you happy with Godwin?
I am happy with Godwin. Another one that I didn't make it a public bet, but I am betting was Van Jefferson over. I just feel like this is one of those games where he's gonna just get like 1 or 2 big catches, with everybody focusing on Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. So I like him in this matchup.
Yeah, you weren't looking at Scotty Miller for 27.5.
Oh gosh, I haven't looked at Scotty Miller since like week 7 of last year.
Yeah.
How about Cooper Kupp opening at like 68.5 and he's up to like 83?
Yeah,
I saw 84 on my book. It's crazy.
Yeah,
that was a oopsie by the books.
For sure. That's silly. But I do think everyone knows that that's the guy. Like, they need to start coming up with a plan for him. You would think.
I like Woods' receiving total. Yes, at 63.5 as well. Like, Woods has been solid, not great to start. I mean, he's been good. He hasn't had like a big 100-yard receiving game yet, but I think Woods is a very good receiver. He's continually, season by season, he's underrated. Tampa Bay has the most dominant rush defense in the league. Not only are they the best rush defense, but teams don't even attempt to run the ball against them. Like, they opposing teams average the fewest rushing attempts per game against Tampa's defense coming into the game plan. And we already know the Bucs throw as much as any team in the league. So I like Woods' receiving total in addition to that funny rushing prop. But I like his receiving total as well at 63.5. I'd be shocked if he was under that.
Yeah, for sure. Next game is the Seattle Seahawks and the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings come in with 3 of their starting quarterbacks in the bottom 10 of PFF rankings. And now they get Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf coming to town. So I like Lockett over 73.5 yards. He's been absolutely balling, and I don't see how the Vikings, stop that from happening in this game. So what are the props that you guys liked in this one?
Yeah, I got Tyler
sorry,
Lockett at 70. I got Tyler Lockett at 74.5. So I'm all in on getting him at 73.5. So love that. And Adam Thielen over 5.5 receptions. I got that at plus odds as well. I think he just is going to continue to be a high someone who's going to get. Yeah. I feel like the public and the books are just looking at Thielen's age and not looking at his play.
Yeah, definitely. And he's obviously a red zone threat as well. So for you anytime touchdown bettors out there. Alex,
yeah. This may sound a bit contrarian, but I've actually been looking at unders, or a few unders that caught my attention in this game. Some really funky lines came out. For instance, Chris Carson under 17.5 rushing attempts. I think this is down to 15.5. I got it in at 17.5. I'm curious what it is right now, Corey.
Down to 13.5.
13.5. I got this at 17.5. He hasn't had 18 attempts, I think, in his last 20 or so games. He didn't have 18 attempts last year, the entire season. I think you have to date back to the 2019 season to when he went over this number. So yeah, at 13.5 is what it should be. It's, in my opinion, it should have been set between 13 and 15, or 13 and 14 and 15.5. But yeah, so yeah, I like that. They also put out, and this kind of negatively correlates, but they also put out both Russ's completions very high and his passing attempts. I got his his completions at 24.5. I'm playing that under.
Still 24.5.
24.5. If you just look at a lot of like recent data, he just he has, that's just a high number for him. I think he has something like an 80 to 85% hit rate, staying under that number over the past this season and last season combined. Same thing applies to his total throwing attempts as well. So yeah, those are a couple unders that I like. I'm not touching Carson at that 13.5 number. Unfortunately, it's not available at 17.5 for us. But yeah, those are the props that I like out of this game. One more interesting thing that I thought was worth a look is KJ Osborne. I think has a pretty low number.
Yeah, it's
I'm erring cautiously, but yeah, he's obviously had I think he's second on the team in targets so far.
Yeah, that might correlate. He's at 43.5 yards right now.
It opened at 37.5. I didn't play it there, but yeah, I like that. I think he's going to continue. I think that offense can sustain 3 receivers, at least having somewhat of a safe floor, 5 to 6 targets per game. Obviously, you got Jefferson and Thielen. Alex mentioned Thielen. I like that.
Definitely. Because of the lack of tight end this year, I think obviously Conklin's there, but I think they're really focused on getting KJ Osborne in there because of Rudolph's gone. His total receptions is at 3.5.
He's looked great too. Yeah,
he looked really good. And they said like he earned that spot from training camp. So
you can tell just the way he's playing. Yeah, I like that a lot when I think about it.
All right, we got to put something in here. The other thing that I was going to say of note is that Chris Carson receiving is at 18.5. I would go under. He got 0. Like he barely got any of the passing work last week, which was weird because week 1 he did. He got some catches. So, and he got nothing last week. There has been some talk that he's just going to be first and second down kind of guy. So, but yeah, so.
It makes sense. I like that as well, Corey. Yeah, he's got durability issues. They're only. I think he's played like something like 90+% of their snaps. It's obviously a really long season. The guy's never stayed healthy for the duration of a whole season. So yeah, it doesn't make sense to give him too big of a workload where they're trying to protect him a little bit. It's obviously so early in the season, and the nature of that position is so injury friendly that I like that prep a lot.
All right, we got to put something in. What are we going with? Wilson under completions?
I think that's really safe if you're looking for a safe play from this game.
Yeah, under 24
like
and a half. $1.90. We'll take that one. The next game we got is Sunday night, Green Bay Packers, San Francisco 49ers. I haven't done tons of work on this game yet. I usually save that for later today. But what do you guys like in this one?
I love Deebo Samuel over 64.5 receiving yards. Where is the love for Deebo? The dude has been awesome this season. Coming into week 2, leads the league in yards after the catch, leads the league in reception yards per game. He has been awesome. The guy has been productive his entire career. The only time he's not is when he struggles with injuries. He's fully healthy right now. I love the way they're using him. I love how he's expanded his route tree. He's running routes down the field. He's, just an awesome weapon for Kyle Shanahan, who's one of the most creative offensive minds in the league. They're scheming him the ball. They're manufacturing him touches. They're getting him the ball down the field. The guy is just electric. I love his yak ability. Yeah, he's one of the most exciting receivers to watch, in my opinion. He is fully healthy. I think as long as that guy's healthy, he is going to just be an absolute stud. I think this should have opened in the neighborhood of 70 yards, 72 yards. He's going to be manufactured a ton of touches. Green Bay's defense does not scare me whatsoever. He's going to run routes out of the slot, close to the line of scrimmage. I'm not worried about Jair Alexander shadowing him because they obviously have other viable options in Ayuk and Kittle. I love Deebo Samuel over 63 or 64.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, it's up to 67.5. It sounds like you still love it there as well.
I do.
Alex,
if he's healthy.
Yeah, I actually I got Deebo Samuel 66.5. I definitely think this game favors Devontae Adams having a big game. And it's always hard when you go with him, Hill, or Kelsey because their lines are always pretty high. But I do like Devontae Adams over 87.5 yards receiving. And then on the Packers side, I have A.J. Dillon over 18.5 rushing yards. I think they're going to progressively get him more involved. And in his first 2 games, he's had 19 and 18. I definitely think he gets the over on that as well.
I was listening to the Sharp podcast, and they were talking about Aaron Jones and using him in the passing game. So I think that's something that the Packers are going to be looking at. And it's receiving yards at 23.5. I think, that's pretty good number there for Aaron Jones receiving yards as well.
Here's something crazy, fellas. Devontae Adams receptions is 8.5.
Oh man,
I would never play that under, but that is it's rare to see. Even for him, it's very uncommon to see a reception line that high. 8.5 receptions. I love his yards, but 8.5 receptions. Whew. That's a big ask.
That is a big ask. So we'll add Deebo to the Power Parlay, and we'll look at the last game of the slate and get you out of here, Alex. It's the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. I already said I'm with Monotone Football at Monotone Football on Twitter. Gave out Jalen Reagor prop, but I just love Jalen Reagor, so I was like, "Yep, I'm tailing that." But that's at 39.5. Anything that you guys like in this one? I do think Jalen Hurts is interesting, especially on the ground. But what are you guys' thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm an Eagles fan, by the way, fellas. So it's music to my ears to hear that. I'm originally from Philadelphia. I like Jalen Reagor as well. I try to take my bias out of the equation, though. But I like Miles Sanders over 50.5 rushing yards. Sanders, I believe last year was top 3 in yards per carry. Once again, this year he's been extremely productive. I think his yards per carry is 4.9. I know that's always not the best indication of how good a running back is, but I think he's an underrated running back. I think if he gets 13 to 15 carries in this offense, it's somewhat of a similar, it parallels a little bit what happens in Baltimore, where Hurts' legs open up a lot of running lanes for the other running backs. We've seen Gainwell come in and be productive. Boston Scott's been productive in the past. So I like Miles Sanders over 50.5 rushing yards. I think he's an absolute lock. If he flirts with 12 touches, which he should. I think he had 13 and 15 carries in the first 2 games, if I'm not mistaken. Also, Keanu Neal, who's currently the starting middle linebacker for Dallas, is missing the game. They already were struggling as far as their rush defense was concerned. He's played a ton of snaps for them. I think he's graded out pretty well. PFF-wise, converted safety to middle linebacker. So, he's been solid. He'll be missing the game. So, I love Miles Sanders over 50.5 rushing yards. On the other side, Dallas, I love this prop. Gave this one out on Twitter yesterday. It was Tony Pollard right back to the running back receiving. It's Tony Pollard over 14.5 receiving yards. I think in both games he's eclipsed 40. They're using him a ton in the passing game. He's been, frankly, just better than Zeke. He's the better running back than Zeke. I'm not sure if, you gave him a massive workload if he's going to outperform Zeke. But, yeah, on a touch-by-touch basis, he's been more productive. He's been more effective. He's very explosive. He's tremendous in the receiving game. I absolutely love that prop as well. Tony Pollard over 14.5 receiving yards.
Why don't I have Tony Pollard receiving yards on here? Is there something going on with the running backs or something?
We got to get you a proxy or something. You get on.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm mad.
Yeah, I got to get on those books.
It can happen, fellas. We'll talk about it privately.
Yeah. I definitely like Jalen Hurts rushing at over 54.5. Like Alex said, he just opens up so many lanes, and I definitely think he can get out and run on this Cowboys defense. And then I got this one at plus 125. It was Devontae Smith over 4.5 receptions. Last week, the receptions weren't there, but the targets were there. He had, I believe, 9 targets in week 1. Here, let me pull it up. It's 8 in week 1, 7 in week 2. Week 3, I know everybody is saying, oh, Diggs is playing a lot better. I definitely think Diggs on the Cowboys is playing better, but I just think Devontae Smith's going to be looked at early and often, and I love to get it at plus 125.
I love that as well. Yeah, I fully agree, Alex. He looked great in week 1. He also had those 8 targets in a positive game script, right? That game finished 38-6 or something like that. So that was with them leading the whole time. Obviously, Dallas is going to spread them out, throw the ball a ton. Dak's been phenomenal. They have, great outside receiving options with CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. So yeah, I like Devontae Smith a lot as well this week. That's another prop. That's probably my top 3 props from the game would be Miles Sanders, Devontae Smith, and the Tony Pollard receiving one. So yeah, I love that.
This is tough. Miles Sanders has been it's been jacked up to 58.5. We could always go we could go alt Miles Sanders and go 50 plus yards at $1.45.
He's getting 50 yards, man.
Alex, what do you think? You can go for safety Monday night.
I mean, honestly, we probably should. I mean, shout out to, I think it was BetMGM who let that bettor who had the Lions money line for his last bet because he couldn't cash out because it was a free play. They actually gave him some money as
they gave him
160
grand.
Yeah.
Shout out MGM. It's great promotion for them. That's definitely the right move to do right there.
Oh, 100%. I've bet through them when I've been in Vegas. So I definitely.
I'm sure they plan that ahead of time. But if I were them, I totally would have let them sweat that game out before notifying them. Right? Like
I think they didn't tell him till the next day.
Okay, that's good
because the guy put up on Instagram. He was like, "All right, I know everybody's waiting to hear my response. I'm just gonna be in bed crying with my wife." Posted that.
You gotta give him some pain, right? A little bit. I just feel like
exactly
the right move.
All right. Well, all up, guys, we're at 13,667 to 1. 15 legs, $5 would get us potential winnings of $68,336. So, I want to say
week you used the boost, right?
Yeah, I don't have the boost.
Yeah.
I just want to thank both of you guys for coming on, and Alex, PropStarz, I really appreciate it. Go ahead and you got lots of things to plug. Go ahead and give the people what they want.
Yeah, so you guys can find me on CBS Sportsline Thursday, Friday, Sunday. On Friday, I do a props only show with Dave Richard and Jonathan Coachman. I believe that airs 2 Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Friday evening, I do a props only show for 4 for 4 with Connor Allen and Ryan Noonan. If you're into props, highly recommend both those programs are an hour plus of just props only, kind of how we chopped it up together. And outside of that, I write a weekly column for CBS that usually drops Thursday night, Friday morning. I also appear on their pregame shows before Thursday Night Football and twice on Sundays. So yeah, check me out. PropStarz on Twitter.
That's awesome, man.
Had a blast with you guys. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah,
what
no
an honor
problem,
to have one of the main pillars of the gambling community on. This is awesome, man. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys. I'd love to come on in the future. I've had a blast.
Sounds good. Thanks Alex Valdez for jumping on again as well, and we'll see you guys next time.